So we're speaking again now about the subjects that are often reported on the internet, subjects that are related to what people are concerned about in the news or in what is being called the awakening of so many people globally. And when I hear and look and see all of what I perceive on these different reports, what I see often is that, of course, there's a great deal of news that when you actually break it down and look at it, it's hard to say who is making this news and what's behind it. And so much of it, as we can see, has been what's called crisis acting, and a great deal of it is almost like a script written for a Hollywood film or something like this, to give the impression that this event is actually happening naturally, when it's not. It's all been scripted. And so much of this is aimed at creating a desired reaction from people, mostly fear, and to believe in what this projected film or video is trying to convey, to get them to have a response that the agenda behind it wants you to have. And there's so many of them that it's getting to the point where they're now obvious and they're being more or less exposed as to what these agendas are. And we know to some extent that it is the New World Order or the Cabal, whatever anyone has researched for themselves, and yet even all of this information is taking place in an even greater context, according to some very great teachers, in my opinion. But there again, it's controversial. So everyone has their view, their worldview. And many of these worldviews are not even from this world. They're off-world or off-planet. They're coming from galactics, or they're coming from soul level. And so how do you make sense of the total picture? How do you put it into some frame that you can really get some overall comprehension of? And for me, the most important point of all of it, which we spoke about in the first video, is this idea that it's not an idea, it's a reality, and that is humanity has the ability to awaken from third dimensional consciousness into what would be called fourth or fifth dimensional consciousness, or what is more often referred to as full consciousness or Christ consciousness. This reality exists. It's very much like, well, as I've reported in the other video, there was one day in my life where I did wake up into that state of full consciousness, what you could call the state of grace. It's been called by very different names, but it's all the same thing. And the only difference between me and anyone else is that on one day I woke up, and it was such a profound difference in the state of consciousness and what I felt and perceived, that by comparison it was like a day dramatically different than any other day in my life. It would be very much like if someone reported an after-death experience, and they have where they die and shortly after they come back to life, and it so affects their life that they go on to dramatically be changed by it, and they give these incredible reports of what it was like on the after-death experience they had. And what I'm saying is that I more or less had what you would call a near-life experience, which is to sort of jokingly to say that on one day I became fully alive, meaning your natural state of consciousness, full consciousness, is your natural state, and we've all lost that. We've all forgotten it. When you wake up to it, you will know for real that you are eternal, that there's no question that you are an aspect of the God or the Godhood or the creator of this universe and beyond. It's a depth of love trillions of times more deep and more powerful, more rich, more vast, more infinite than anything you can even conceive of from inside the third dimensional reality. So now here we are back in the third dimensional reality. We had it. We had this experience, and I came back, and now it's back to where we call normal waking reality, which in a sense is like a semi-conscious amnesia, walking around in a state of fog, so to speak, by comparison, not to belittle the state of what we call third dimensional consciousness. But the reason I stress this important fact that the state of grace, the state of Christ consciousness exists, is because there's so much fear, there's so much of this oppressive force, this enslavement that we have lived under on planet Earth for centuries. There's so much fear and so much confusion that it's often forgotten and lost that this state of consciousness is your natural state. It is my natural state. It's the natural state of everyone and everything. And you are destined to wake up. It's inevitable that you will. There's no question that you will. But it's free will. The universe is free will. So therefore, all of the time period we're in now, beginning from 2012, is this ascension process that's going out of the state of third dimension into this ascension state. Because the Earth had to save its life, had to save all of nature and all of the beings too. We've been through apparently cataclysms and catastrophes in Atlantis and after Atlantis, and even space wars and negative ETs, and who knows all of the things, the wars and things that have devastated the planet and humanity. We're traumatized, and we're coming out of that now. And that's the point. And all that we see, whether it's cabals or Ebola or ISIS or all of these different attempts on the part of the controlling forces, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, it's all being done out of fear and control to make a one-world dictatorship, whatever, because they don't want us being awake and being in love and feeling free and being the empowered individuals we are. But we gave them the power, so take it back. Bring your power back. Learn about self-empowerment, how we create our own realities. We all do that, and there's fantastic channels who can teach this. And some of those are saying that you're literally not just existing in one world. We're not here to save a world, or if we are, we're here to save a world. Well, okay, according to some, which world are you saving? Because apparently we're shifting between parallel probable worlds 1 billion times per second. Now, if that's true, and I think it is, that's the physics we're dealing with in this universe, because we're multidimensional beings. We're in the state of grace, whether we remember that or not. We are in different probable parallel realities that are vast, perhaps even infinite. At the same time, we are, in a very knowing way, we are connected to the state of grace, unconditional love forever. So therefore, we have this ability, and we are shifting between parallel worlds, and we literally have parallel probable versions of ourselves existing in the future, present, and past, which apparently is also simultaneous. And what I experienced in my own near-life experience, or my awakening moment of the state of grace, Christ consciousness experience, is that absolutely you're in timelessness. You're in a state where there's no time. It's totally different. The feeling of it is totally different. You're in a state where you are in a depth of love that's like all the oceans and rivers and atmospheres in the world, by comparison to, let's say, 1 cup of tea, by comparison. 1 cup in terms of feeling. So that's the difference. We lose sight of that in all of these problems and all of these influences trying to decide, what do we do? How do we create our reality? What do we do about all these problems? What do we do about this earth? Well, one thing, and I agree with those teachers who say, follow what makes you feel good, because when you do that, when you follow what makes you feel good, you're in connection to your source energy, and that's the only place you have any power to do anything about anything. And so the whole idea, it seems backwards. It seems sort of crazy. Well, I'm supposed to be like all bubbly and fuzzy and happy when this devastation is going on in the world, and I'm supposed to do something about it. Well, as one very beautiful teacher said by the name of Seth, he said, fun is the true responsibility. And you may think you're saving the world, but if you're not having fun, you're not saving anybody. And I thought, wow, what a powerful statement. And that's key to this. If we're going to save the world, first question is, which world are you saving? Which version of which parallel probable world are we saving? And secondly, are we having fun doing it? Because those are two very important questions, I think, to the whole subject of whatever is going on here in the third dimension on planet Earth. And its inevitable rise into the next higher state of full consciousness awakening, because no matter what, nothing can mess up the intention of this planet and anybody on it or anything on it, because everything is eternal. And when you wake up, you'll know that for sure. And you will wake up. And so the idea of just this changing of the world, the question is, which world? Because no world changes. In other words, it's like you're really, the question is, how do you change your response and your reaction to the world or the things around you? Because when you do, what you're doing is you're changing your own frequency. You're changing your own vibration. And if you can get happier or more in love or more in tune with your source energy, which you will do when you're in a positive state of energy, then you're literally shifting to a parallel probable world that you prefer, that is more accommodating or more like what you wanted. If we want a better government, well, what's the better government that we want? In other words, whenever we're in this anger and we're lashing out and angry about the injustices, the first thing that takes the blow is your own physical body, and you get sick. And so there's something about this way of dealing with the problems that is very important. And I am trying to understand it myself, and the point of this particular video is to stress the importance of a few points I touched on, and the main being the state of full consciousness exists. The awakening is happening now. It's very real. It exists, and it's inevitable that everyone is on their way there. So, on that note, I'll end, and we'll go on to another chapter.